Good afternoon, classes, and welcome to Chapter 8, Section 4. This will be the last section of Chapter 8 that we're going to talk about, and then you should be getting ready to complete your review and take your test on Friday. So I look forward to finishing up Chapter 8. What we need to talk about today are angles of elevation and angles of depression, and hopefully you've heard us mentioning these in class already. So first we need to talk about these two words, elevation and depression. Everything that goes with elevation, so lots of you think about elevators and you think about the idea of going up. All of those things are going to work for angles of elevation. Same thing if you think about depression and being sad or going down. When you're depressed, your mood is down. When you're elevated, your mood is up. So all those ideas are going to work too. It's where you're going to look and what direction to find the angle. So I do want to draw some pictures, and we're going to do some examples. You should have your questions already picked up, and I'm just cutting mine apart, and we're going to talk about them in a particular order. I'm even going to save one for in class. So if you want to cut yours apart like mine, then go ahead and push pause and get those cut apart. If you do not have the questions or you forgot to pick it up or you've lost it, then every time I pull up a question, remember to hit pause, write the question, and then just push play and we can continue on. So if you didn't get your questions, it's okay. You can hit pause and write them in for yourself. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just draw a little example of where angle of elevation is located. So if I have this basic right triangle in my picture, elevation is any time I'm going to look up. So maybe I'm standing here. Here I am. And I see a plane flying in the sky. Then, of course, for me to see that plane, I would have to look up, and then we're going to talk about this angle here. So I'm just going to put a little theta mark for now. Not quite sure what the angle measure is, and that's what we're going to find out. So these are all our applications. Depression. Maybe this time I'm standing on a cliff. Not going to jump, I promise, but I see something down here on the ground. So maybe a little flower, a little cactus, just something, a little rodent. And that action of me looking down. Now what makes elevation and depression so difficult is not knowing whether to look up or down, but knowing where to put the angle. So we're going to talk about parallel lines, horizons, and things of that nature. So depression is any time I look down. So here's my line of sight, or the horizon. Then I look down, and I could see my object below me. Now remember, geometry is putting right triangles where none existed. So in order to solve, I am going to put in a right triangle either here, and I'm going to need some other information, or even a right triangle with the ground. And I have made a rectangle, this hypotenuse being the diagonal. We're going to find all these missing angles and all the information I need. All right, so let's start with our first word problem. Remember, if you didn't pick up your worksheet, then pause, write down your question, and just push play again whenever you're ready. If at any time anything else comes up, remember to hit pause and come back when you're ready. Okay, so I'm ready. And let's read what we have. Always remember to read your word problem. A 12-foot ladder is leaning against the wall. If the angle between the ladder and the ground is 52 degrees, find how high up the wall the ladder reaches. And they didn't give us any pictures. So first thing we need to do, remember, is to always sketch ourselves a picture. And I'm just going to do my sketch on the underside. So let's see. We have a 12-foot ladder and a wall. I'll give myself a little wall here. And here's my 12-foot ladder. Label everything. And the wall, we don't know how tall the wall is. Oh, but we do know here it is on the ground. And here's where our right triangle is going to be formed. So they said the angle between the ladder and the ground is 52 degrees. So here's my ladder and the ground. And this would be considered an angle of elevation coming up. And they want to know how high up the wall is this ladder touching. So here's kind of a basic word problem to go with 8-2, actually. So let's see if we can solve it. Remember, I always identify my hypotenuse and then ask myself those two questions. What do I have and what do I want? Okay, well, I have the opposite angle, or the opposite, I want the opposite side from the angle, and I have the hypotenuse. So if I want to flip back in my notes to the other day, opposite and hypotenuse would be sine. So I'm going to come back over here. Sine of 52 degrees. The opposite side, I do not know. The hypotenuse was 12. Now we know if I punch this in the calculator, it's just going to be a matter of cross-multiplying. First, make sure your calculator's in what mode? Degree mode is correct, so my calculator is in the degree mode. And I'm going to say sine of 52 degrees, close my parentheses, times the 12-foot ladder. And I get it to be, and let's round this to just the nearest tenth, so 9.5 feet. And if I wanted to go back and answer, did I answer the question? Find how high up the wall the ladder reaches. The ladder reaches 9.5 feet. Okay, so that's kind of a review one from 8-2. Let's see if we can get a word problem with some elevation and depression questions. So here's my second one. Remember, if you didn't get your paper, push pause, write it down, and we're ready to go. When the angle of elevation to the sun is 52 degrees, a tree casts a shadow that is 9 meters. What is the height of the tree? All right, so let's see. We have some tree standing out here, and this tree is casting a shadow. So I'm going to put my sun over here. That way its shadow is this way. So here's my shadow, and it says my shadow is 9 meters. And the angle of elevation to the sun is 52 degrees. So here's my angle, and we have this little right triangle in here formed with the tree. And it asks me, what's the height of my tree? So now this one's very similar to the problem with the ladder and the wall. 52 degrees, I have some information, and what do I want? So I'm going to ask myself, here's the hypotenuse. What do I have? What do I want? I have the side that's adjacent to 52 degrees, and I want the opposite. So if I need to look back in my notes, I'll notice that the tangent uses the opposite and adjacent. So, opposite over adjacent. Again, this is going to be a basic cross multiply, and I'll be able to solve for x. So, tangent of 52 degrees times 9, and I get about 11.5 feet. Not a very tall tree. Okay, I'm going to move to my left-hand side. And the next one I'm going to do, all of these are pretty easy. The hardest part is maybe setting up the pictures, knowing what the picture is going to look like. All right, a person snorkeling sees a turtle on the ocean floor at an angle of depression of 38 degrees. She is 14 feet above the ocean floor. How far from the turtle is she? Okay. So here's our person snorkeling. Maybe she's going to take pictures. right? And it said she is 14 feet above the ocean floor. So here's my ocean floor. And she sees a turtle. And there's my turtle. And we want to know how far away from the turtle is she. Okay, so she sees the turtle at an angle of depression. So this is going to be from her line of sight. So here she is up here swimming, and she looks down, and there's her 38 degrees. All right, so depending where this 38 degrees is, depends on which triangle you're going to solve. Are you looking at the triangle that's formed right here that I've kind of already drawn in which case the 38 degrees is outside of the triangle, and I may have to do a little math or a little theorem relationship to find the angles on the inside, or I can solve for a triangle outside in this direction. It's up to you which one you're comfortable with, but do realize that 38 is on the outside of this picture I kind of drew at the beginning, which means 38 degrees can also go right here with the triangle. These are alternate interior angles. Remember, her line of sight, or the horizon, and the ocean floor are going to be parallel to each other. They're going to solve for the same thing. All right, and here's 14, which makes this also 14. The picture I jump to first is usually this one, because I know this height that she is off the floor. So now that we have 38 set, here or here, I'm going to go about solving it. Identify my hypotenuse, and then ask myself, what do I have versus what do I want? Well, right away I know that I'm going to want a hypotenuse, so I can only use sine or cosine. And then from 38 degrees, the side I do have is opposite. So which one uses opposite and hypotenuse? And that is sine, correct. So opposite over hypotenuse. Now we run into the situation where not only do I have to cross multiply, but I also have to divide. So cross multiply, and I get x sine of 38 degrees equals 14. Then I need to work on getting x alone. Remember, sine of 38 degrees goes together. So I'm simply going to divide it out. Now I'm ready for my calculator. So 14 divided by sine of 38 degrees, close parentheses. And we're at 22.7. So in a complete sense, I can say this person snorkeling is 22.7 feet away from the turtle. All right, good job. We have one more to do together, and I'm actually just going to set it up for you, and then we're going to finish it in class. So here's the next order. We have Jared, and we have the rectangle is going to be number 5. So I'm going to help you set up Jared, and then I'm actually going to want you to finish it on your own. I'm going to ask you in class to help me finish it out for you. All right, so Jared is standing 12 feet from a rock climbing wall. When he looks up to see his friend ascend the wall, the angle of elevation is 56 degrees. How high up the wall is his friend? So let's see. We have Jared. We have this rock wall and his friend. And remember, elevation means he looked up. So there's my 56 degrees. He's standing 12 feet from the wall. And we want to know how high his friend is. So that's where I'm going to leave you this afternoon. Answer the question. And if you want, here's question number 5. Go ahead and give us the setup and try to answer number 5 on your own. And I look forward to seeing you in class. Have a nice evening.